The porcelain cup trembled slightly in his hand, not because the tea was hot, but because loneliness had weight. It sat across from him at the table, invisible yet suffocating, as chandeliers shimmered above and laughter echoed through the grand ballroom. He was a single father who had learned to survive silence, but that night silence felt louder than ever. And then 3 tiny hands clutched the edge of his suit jacket, and 3 trembling whispers changed everything. Pretend you're our father. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when strangers choose compassion, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that humanity still shines in the darkest rooms. Daniel Hart had not planned to attend the charity gala. Black tie events were not made for men who measured life in school lunches packed at dawn and bedtime stories whispered through exhaustion. But his late wife had loved this foundation. She had believed in giving back, even when they had little. So Daniel wore his navy suit, straightened his tie in the mirror, and walked into a world that no longer felt like his. He sat alone at a corner table with a simple cup of tea, watching the room swirl with glittering gowns and polished smiles. Couples leaned into each other. Old friends toasted successes. He tried not to notice how his phone wallpaper, his 7-year-old son Liam grinning with missing front teeth, felt like both a blessing and a bruise. Being a single father had reshaped him. It had carved patience into his bones and stitched strength into his weary heart. But it had also left him feeling out of place in rooms where everyone seemed paired, complete. That was when he felt it, the smallest tug at his sleeve. He turned, expecting a waiter or perhaps a child lost from their table. Instead, 3 identical little girls stood behind him, dressed in pale blush dresses with soft curls framing their anxious faces. Their wide blue eyes shimmered not with mischief, but fear. They couldn't have been older than 6. They leaned closer, their tiny hands cupping their mouths, as if guarding a secret too heavy for their size. They whispered that they needed him to pretend to be their father, just for a few minutes, just until the man across the room stopped looking at them. Daniel's breath caught. He followed their gaze subtly. Near the bar stood a sharply dressed man with an impatient expression, glancing toward the girls with visible irritation. Beside him stood a woman in a deep red gown, elegant and distant, her eyes fixed anywhere but on the children. The tension between them felt sharp enough to slice through crystal. Daniel's instincts, honed by years of protecting Liam, rose instantly. He did not ask questions. He did not hesitate. He simply nodded and placed his cup down. The girls climbed into the empty chairs beside him as if they had rehearsed it. One slipped her small hand into his. Another leaned gently against his arm. The third stared at the floor, her shoulders tight. Daniel wrapped his arm around them, steady and warm, as if he had always belonged there. From across the room, the man's posture shifted. His gaze lingered, calculating. Then, slowly, he looked away. Daniel felt the girls exhale in unison. For the next few minutes, he played the part they had begged him to play. He leaned close as if listening to stories about school. He smiled softly, nodding with parental attentiveness. He brushed a loose curl from one girl's face with a tenderness that surprised even himself. Something inside him stirred, a protective love that had no logic, only instinct. Gradually, their whispers turned into real conversation. He learned their names were Ava, Lily, and Sophie, triplets. Their mother had remarried recently. The man by the bar was their new stepfather. They did not use harsh words to describe him, but children rarely need to. The fear in their eyes told Daniel enough. They explained that whenever they were too loud or too needy, he would glare at them in a way that made their stomachs hurt. Tonight, they had accidentally spilled juice at their table and his expression had turned cold. Their mother had grown quiet, embarrassed. The girls had slipped away. Daniel listened, his jaw tightening. He had seen that look before, the look of children who felt unwanted. Across the ballroom, the woman in red finally approached. Her posture was composed, but her eyes betrayed exhaustion. She stopped short when she saw the girls clinging to Daniel. Something unspoken passed between the adults. Daniel rose slowly, still keeping a gentle hand on the girls' shoulders. He did not accuse, he did not lecture. Instead, he spoke calmly about how wonderful the girls were, how bright their smiles were, how they had simply needed reassurance. He spoke not as a stranger, but as a father who understood how fragile little hearts could be. The woman's composure cracked. Tears pooled in her eyes as she admitted she had been trying so hard to make her new marriage work that she hadn't realized how small her daughters had begun to feel. The stepfather remained at a distance, his pride too rigid to soften. Daniel did not stay long after that. He knelt down, told the girls they were brave, and reminded them that they deserved to feel safe. Always. As he walked toward the exit, he felt something shift inside him. The loneliness that had followed him into the ballroom felt lighter. Purpose had replaced it. Weeks passed. Then one afternoon, while picking up Liam from school, Daniel heard 3 familiar giggles. Ava, Lily, and Sophie ran toward him across the playground. Behind them walked their mother, without the man from the gala. She explained quietly that she had chosen her daughters over a marriage that demanded their silence. It had not been easy, but watching a stranger protect her children had awakened something in her. She had remembered who she was before compromise blurred her courage. The girls wrapped their arms around Daniel's waist as if he had always been part of their world. Liam stood beside him, confused at first, then smiling as children so easily do. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to engage with the video. Like it, share it, and let others feel this message too. Kindness spreads further than we imagine. Months later, what began as a desperate whisper at a gala had grown into something beautiful. The families began spending weekends together. Park picnics turned into shared dinners. Laughter returned to spaces that once felt empty. Daniel never expected to be the answer to someone else's silent prayer that night. He had only planned to drink tea alone and leave unnoticed. But sometimes the smallest act of pretending becomes the most honest version of who we truly are. Before we close, I have one special request for you. Comment the word courage if you believe every child deserves to feel safe and loved. Because in a ballroom filled with chandeliers and polished shoes, it wasn't wealth or status that changed lives. It was a single father choosing to say yes when 3 frightened little girls needed someone to stand beside them. And sometimes that is all it takes to rewrite a future.